Okay, whenever you guys would like to start the meeting, it is yours.
Okay, well, we're at 7 o'clock. We shall officially call it to order. First thing we're gonna do is a pledge of allegiance. And we get the flag here.
I see it.
Yep,
Pledge allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag of the United States of America,
America.
to
And
the
to
republic
to the
for
republic
which it
for which
stands,
it
stands, one nation,
one nation
nation under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
for all.
Okay, we need to have, I don't know, have we got a secretary?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know you were here.
It's okay. You want roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mike Barber,
I'm here. On
Lisa
phone.
Blade,
Here.
Jim Chuck,
Here.
Tony Rainey,
Here.
and Dean Whitcomb.
Here.
Okay, we need approval of the minutes then.
Or how about approval of tonight's agenda first, Tony?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'll make a
approval
motion to
yes.
approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll
Second.
support.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the motion is passed. Any opposed? I guess not. Now approval of the minutes. Now I wasn't here, so you guys got to take care of that.
I'd move to approve the minutes of the July 20th meeting.
I'll support.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, public hearings. We will open with Gregory Schott, 55001 Lee Road, New Hudson. Sidwell number 2110 400 013.
I'm gonna bring them in right now.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg, you just have to unmute your mic and you'll be good to go. There you go.
How's it going?
Good.
Right.
Hello,
All
how
set.
are you? Welcome to the meeting.
Thanks.
You are up first. You want to explain what's going on and what your request is? We've got the paperwork.
Sure.
We'd like to just hear what you've got to say too. So.
Yep, sure. So we're looking at building a accessory building, basically on the property, to basically put our trailers, do some woodworking and other things like that. The location that we decided that we think would be best to put the pole barn is on the side of the property, but being that we're in a corner lot, it's considered two frontage roads, and thus causing requesting that 75-foot variance, which we were looking to hopefully reduce that footage to 20 feet, just so that it fits with the flow of the house and the property, and basically to put up an accessory building.
Okay, and that's actually 20 foot from the easement is what you're talking about from what I could tell, right?
Yeah, 20 feet from our property line.
Yeah, okay. All right, we have any, let's see, was there anything else? We needed the two variances, one for the corner and one for the setback too. Okay, that's what we got, yeah. Okay, any discussion on this?
I didn't see anything from McKenna on this. Brian, anything to add to this one?
There was, I thought there was a letter in there from McKenna on that. I got
Yes,
something.
There's a letter.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I get the live version.
I think Brian's on mute, maybe.
Any better?
Oh,
Very
well, you still, there he is.
Still quiet?
Yes, very quiet.
about now?
Not any better. There, you got it.
There you go.
Better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I do have to tell you, I forgot to let you know that I spoke with Carol this afternoon. She's not feeling well, so she won't be attending the meeting this evening. But that aside, so it's an interesting situation, and it's one that, yes, in terms of placement of the building is similar to what you considered in, I think it was your June or July meeting, where the corner, I'm gonna share my screen here, where the corner lot has frontage on both South Hill and Lee Road, and you know, one of well, we've got a couple of things going on. So in our letter, we say we don't necessarily think that there is a burden to placing the structure where it is permitted on the lot. So we know that the owners submitted this drawing showing where a building would actually, or where the shed could actually go. And then we actually think that it could go per the ordinance all the way to 10 feet south of or 10 feet north of the southern property line. So I think there is a little bit more space on the lot than is depicted here. But in terms of placement and reasons based on the standards of the ordinance, we think there's enough space out in the backyard where it could reasonably be placed. The other thing that we considered was in terms of how the standards apply. This being a corner lot is not significantly different than any of the other corner lots throughout the township. And so we think that if we start to grant a variance in this case, there are many other instances that are similarly situated. And so we'd have to start considering, really in that case, modification to the ordinance would be more appropriate if this is something that we actually would like to consider as a township. So, you know, we also think it's a difficult property, right? Because South Hill is really quite separated from the lot. It's pretty apparent that Lee Road here is the front yard.
Yeah, there's also, not to interrupt, but there's also 30 feet of tree line in between South Hill Road and my property line. So there's actually like a large, I mean, there's, as you can kind of see, there's a ton of trees that separate it as well. That separate the road from our property line. So it's not like a lot of other properties I've seen driven around where it's all open yardage. It's very kind of a little bit closed off a little bit during the summer months.
Right. I actually stopped by and looked if you saw
Okay.
a white pickup lurking around or something. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, you've got really a lot of tree and blockage there.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're just too close to the property line for the type of building. And is there any reason that you couldn't move it to the back of the property? See, we have to look at this legally for the entire township.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And that's why I am requesting the variance. I know it's a tough one. The reason why I would not like it in the back of the property is actually because of my neighbors, for one, and myself. So looking out for basically the neighborhood of the line. If you actually don't mind pulling up that picture or the neighborhood, the houses actually, both of our houses, we have a lot of windows in the back of our house. So you can kind of see the neighbor here with the pool and then my house. And if you actually zoom back out a little bit, you can actually see that we have actually a really great view of this field right here and then this barn. So it's actually really nice because the way that the houses are kind of set up is that the view is actually really nice. And so I think it would kind of hinder a lot of view. I think it also will eliminate a lot of yardage that we have. So I got, as you saw, I got one boy and another one coming. I like to keep them in the back of the house as much as possible to play, just so that they stay off of the, the main roads. So that's sort of the reason why we would like it. Also, I'm not planning on doing a lot of work in there, but I do some woodworking. And putting the barn in the location next to the tree line, I think would also keep, if I would be doing any wood projects or any kind of projects in there, it'll keep the noise away from the neighbors. And also twofold, it'll actually help a little bit, as there is a tree line. There's still a lot of those cars go down the road at 60, 70 miles an hour. And so it'll actually help a little bit with the noise as well as block some of that noise. Say they're going 60 miles an hour, but they go a little fast on that dirt road. So
Yeah, they tend to go fast on most dirt roads around
yeah,
here.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we knew that kind of like buying the house, but to reduce that noise, I think would help ourselves and our neighbors. So, and actually, I designed it, the placement. I know it kind of looks like I'm using the structure, but you can see I moved it off to the right a little bit. But you actually, from my neighbor's house, I kind of designed it so that you would not be able to see the barn whatsoever. So from the neighbor's house, it would not even hinder any of their view. So looking at that aspect, I was trying to make something that would not be burdensome to anybody in the neighborhood as well.
Okay, anybody else got any comments?
Well, Tony, I like you drove down there today and, just by looking at it, it must have been the last lot left, because as I drove through the entire Lee Road, looks like the acreage got bigger. The first 4 homes where Mr. Schatz, if I pronounce that properly.
Yep.
I can appreciate the fact that you're trying to block the view from your existing neighbor. That was the first thing I looked at. So I can really appreciate that. Where I'm torn, and I think Tony alluded to it, this is for the entire township, and we're talking about 2 very large variances here. And as I've typically sat on this board, I can see granting variances, but when I look at, 1.33 acres variance from 2, I'm not going to do the math right now, but it's pretty substantial. And then if we get by that, then we're looking for a 55-foot variance, which that's extremely large.
Really, it's very substantial. I agree with you, Jim. That bothered me too.
And so right at this point, I mean, I just can't sit here and justify it. I kind of feel for you, and then, and you're a good woodworker, but now we're talking about running a small business in a residential zone. I mean, there's a lot of different moving parts.
I just want to make this very clear. It's not a small business.
Okay.
I'm an engineer for the big 3. This is strictly just my wife on Pinterest finding projects to keep me busy. So
okay.
it's strictly,
Thank you for clarifying that. That's fine. But
she's laughing at me right now because she knows all the fun stuff that she's.
I would love to sit here and say it's a slam dunk, in my opinion, but
yeah.
I can't say it. So I've kind of voiced my opinion, and anyone else can move on.
If it does help, I mean, our plan is for the building. I mean, we want to make sure that it is a good looking building. I know that's important for us. I don't, if you guys stop by my house, you guys know that I care a lot about landscape.
Oh, your house looked beautiful. The whole.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. I mean, that's not.
So I will say that I will make sure that we take the time and energy and effort into making it look as beautiful from the side of the road, on all sides of the house, to make sure that it fits well with the property, as well as match the color of the house as well. So our goal is actually to do a steel building. As you know, they're very nice. I believe that they're a very nice looking building that you could, they would.
Oh yeah.
Well, like, I don't think it would be an eyesore in the least. And if anything, I think it would look better, because if you guys were at the property, you probably saw that trailer that was in my backyard that I'm trying to also hide. So I'm trying to get some of the trailer, and then I got some other stuff that's, at my father, like a couple lawnmowers that I need to bring over here that I'd like to get into, in a closed area.
Well, the biggest problem is there are other places to put it on this property, and that's what we have to look at. And, you know, the thing that I'm thinking is that you just maybe sneak it back as far into the corner and just get it back off it to match the side of your house. I mean,
Where-
that's about the best.
Where were you looking at? I'm sorry.
Well,
On
just
which side?
I mean, just looking at it overall. I mean, I didn't go in the yard or anything, but looking at the
No, you're
overview.
more than, if you guys want to, you're more than welcome to
that's
take a look.
That's okay.
at
Believe me,
mine.
we do if we got questions. We will come and knock on the door.
No, for sure. But I was wondering
No,
where
we,
we're looking.
no, but it
'cause-
just, okay, yeah, this is.
So
that's-
right there is where we have our shed. Our shed is right there, our garden, as well as our chicken coop and run, that were there when we purchased the house. We actually purchased the house 3-4 months ago. So,
Yeah,
and as you could put it over there to the right, like I said, I think one is building a driveway all the way there. And also I think it'll take away a lot of the view and cause issues with the neighbors. Like I said, with the view and everything else, it's going to block a lot of stuff. And I'm trying to, being a new neighbor, I definitely don't want to create any hardship between the neighborhood, which can cause more issues down the road.
well, the only thing is, as far as the view and all that, you know, that farm next door could sell just as easily tomorrow too and be houses too, so.
Which there's, I mean, I don't believe that is the case, but yeah, I will agree with that.
You know, and hopefully, I mean, I'm a farmer.
I
like
I
to see
actually
my.
talked. Yeah, I actually talked to both the neighbors. Linda is one and Chris is the other. It was actually a great opportunity to meet both of them, and actually was. But talking to Linda, I don't think she's going to be selling anytime soon. So
No. It will happen sooner or later. It always does.
hopefully
but
not.
you know,
though. It's-
anyway, no,
like
I
it.
saw I saw the letters. They supported you and everything.
Yeah.
That's all good too. But once again, we have to deal with the entire township.
Yep.
And if we, you know, give you something, we might get 100 people in here wanting the same thing, even with totally different situation where they don't have the trees and don't have anything else. And I mean, it's
Right.
the ordinances are there
And
for
I
a
agree with
reason, and ours, we're not
Yeah,
here to
and I
question why
hopefully-
they're there.
Well, and that's kind of why I requested the variances, because I really truly believe that each situation is a little bit different. And I believe that if it affects other people in other areas, I would hopefully, you know, could also take a look at their property and see if it makes sense. Like I
Right.
said, in my case, I think that's why you go request a variance. It's not just because you want to.
Exactly. No,
It's because I think it's a unique situation, and that's why I'm trying to bring it up to you guys.
Yep.
For support.
Tony,
Okay.
if I,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a couple of comments.
Sure.
I appreciate that the applicant is really interested in being a good neighbor and having an attractive yard and such. And I definitely understand that. But in looking at the McKenna letter, it does identify that each applicant needs to meet all of the standards of the ordinance. And I think that McKenna did a really good job in the letter that we have in our packet. And unfortunately, this application doesn't meet any of those standards to grant a variance. And I don't think that there really are any conditions that are unique to this one specific parcel like we had at our last meeting where we were dealing with flooding and the building would have ended up in like underwater for a significant part of the yard. And so I think that this circumstance is present for every corner lot that we have in the township. And as mentioned, and I think Jim Chuck mentioned that, you know, this is a decision that really we need to consider the entire township. And then I feel like we would have every person who lives on a corner lot coming in and asking for the same variance for their individual needs or interests. And I feel like too, if this isn't even really the least amount of variance that could be asked for. It's not like, you know, cheating at 2 feet or 3 feet. It's a pretty significant variance. So as much as I appreciate the attempt to put this in a more convenient location, I really just don't see that this request meets the conditions of our ordinance.
So you were requesting that I would move it closer to my house from the road? Is that what you were kind of stating?
I would just have you put it within within the part of your yard that is not asking for a setback.
Yeah, see, I mean, again, it's would be, I believe, again, it's my personal, it'd be very difficult just because of the way that everything is set back, and then it'd basically eliminate my rear yard as well, which is also kind of main family is most of the time, so.
Can I add, I'd like to add one comment that I think is, well, it's not directly impacting your decision tonight. I want everybody to be aware the Planning Commission is considering here in the coming weeks, maybe a month, we'll be considering some modifications to the setback, the front setbacks in the zoning district that may go down to 50 feet in the R10 district. And so that would give you a bit more room to play with, Craig, if it goes that route, if the Planning Commission ends up making that determination that it's appropriate.
Brian, would that have to go through to the board as well?
It does, yeah. Yeah, there was actually, we had the public hearing noticed for last week, but due to the open meetings issues that the state was having, we had to cancel that meeting. So we'll be rescheduling that.
So Brian, then in the event that this would be turned down tonight, this applicant could come back at a future date if in fact the ordinance was changed. Is that correct?
You want to answer that, Brian, or you want to just?
Well, it's an interesting question because the way that our ordinance is written, you cannot request the same variance from the same ordinance standard for up to a year.
But he wouldn't be asking for the same. I guess he would the same variance. Just a different
That's why I had to give it a pause, because he'd still be requesting the variance from the same section of the ordinance.
I get it.
The ordinance would just be different. I think we would consider that without that year penalty.
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I was just asking for a clarification for the applicants.
Yeah.
With
I
that being,
was thinking the same thing, Jim and Brian. That's why I wonder whether you want to answer that, because I know it's a legal question technically, but I think you're probably right. So
with that being said, though, if there's already discussions about moving it, I think that the restrictions are maybe a little too aggressive for the setback anyways. But
you got to understand though, that we really have to deal with what's currently on the books, and anything in the future,
understand 100%. It's just
we're just trying to look at another option for you later on in the future. Okay.
And I do appreciate it. I'm hoping that we get the variance tonight, and that's saved me an extra $200 to come.
Well, Greg, another option.
Which I will. I mean, if need be, if the variance changes, I would like to come back and request the same thing.
I think I don't want to speak for everybody, but I have the same concerns that the other board members do. But there's a potential couple $100 savings if we tabled it. And it was still, an open application that got tabled, number one. But I don't know that changes the concerns of the room. It's still a pretty significant variance. I completely get the backyard for your son and your future child. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I get all the view stuff. I'm much more relaxed about the first variance request, being the 1.33 acres versus the 2, because it is a corner lot and things get a little squirrely with that. But the floodgates open with a 55-foot variance to every corner lot in the township. And while it makes complete sense for what you're looking at, the rules that we're kind of bound by, it's more than just your lot, which I think is causing where the stars aren't aligning here tonight. Just my opinion.
Yeah, it's I understand that. It's difficult to take from my seat,
I get it.
Oh,
I get it.
absolutely. We understand.
Just because
that.
it's just the way that everything is. I'm just trying to consider everybody's views, and it's just difficult because I've talked with a couple people and just trying to find out what the history is even on the 75-foot, variance itself, which seems to me seems like a very far setback to be off of your property line, which I believe is created especially on a corner lot. So when I bought the property, I didn't know that I had 2 frontage roads. It wasn't until I started digging into it. I thought Hill Road would have been a side lot, 30 feet. When I looked at the first ordinance, and I found out it was a frontage yard. But it was just very difficult for me to, I guess, understand why even the 75-foot setback, which seems like it would reduce the usage of the property, I guess you could say. Because I do believe that if you can go further towards the frontage road, or they're able to, I think it would open up, like say my backyard, which is a safe place for my kids to play, also would not reduce the view of other neighbors. So it's very difficult, being that I came from a house with 7/8 of an acre to this house with 1.3 acres. And it just like the usable area keeps getting smaller and smaller. I came from a different county. But it seems like the usage of the property is becoming less and less. So,
And that's where I struggle with this, because it is a rural part of the township. The neighbors are supportive. There's lots of reasons to say yes, but
I have a farm next to me,
right. With that said, does Brian, and I'm sorry, I'm getting in Carol's land with this question, but does tabling this save him a fee if we wait and see for a month if that ordinance changes?
Well, the way I look at it, Dean, is that we can table it with some sort of a time frame. And we don't have to say a month, or even we can put like a 6-month limit on it or something, to where he can have that much time. If it's being discussed by the planning commission, and it's not gonna go through in a month anyway. But we can give them a little bit of time, and I don't have a problem with tabling it just because of that too. But I right at this moment right now, I personally would not be in favor of the 55-foot variance. I just can't. It's too big for what we got to deal with for the township.
Isn't the variance request, that was a published item for a certain number of feet? So
Right.
if we table it, that application still stands. He would be coming back asking for the exact same variance of the same number, the same distance, right, Brian?
See, once again, this is where the lawyer comes in.
Well, no, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if the ordinance does change, the variance request is actually less. The placement of the structure is the same, but the variance request would be less.
But isn't the wording the same? I mean, the wording that was published says 55 feet. Can we, if we table this, if we table this and he comes back in 6 months, if the ordinance has been changed, isn't he still requesting
That,
5-foot?
it's a good point, Lisa, but I don't know that it doesn't have to be republished if it's going to be coming out as an issue on the agenda anyway. I think the agenda gets published anyway, even if it is a tabled issue that's brought back up. So at
Right,
that
I'm not
point,
saying
but at that point, if it's going to be an issue that has changed, then the wording for the variance will change as it's coming up anyway, I think. I mean, once again, not a lawyer.
I don't know.
I mean, okay, so here's what I would suggest you do is, if you think there's a chance that it might be something you consider, then I think that you should, if the ordinance changes, then I think you should table it and we can figure out if we have to publish a new notice later. But I think the things to keep in mind are the specific standards. Are they going to change in terms of, is this a self-created issue? It's still going to be a self-created issue at that point. Are there circumstances that are different on this property than other corner properties? Our letter didn't find any. So I think some of those things that you still have to consider, they're not going to change whether or not the setback changes in the future or not.
Greg, let me ask you, we're looking at a black or white option. Is there a shade of gray here? Is there a way to move that building that reduces the amount of the variance that's being asked for, that maintains some backyard and view, but gives us a little cover to other corner lots in the township?
If you guys would allow me some time, I could probably go out and take a look. I definitely also want to talk with my wife. We wanted to keep 10 feet of distance between our landscaping and where the building was to be made, just so that we were able to mow it and just have a walkway.
Mhm.
But if you guys wouldn't mind, if I could come back with that, there is a potential, I could potentially move it, a few feet. I can't, 10 feet, I'm going to hit my landscaping. Right. But I could potentially move it, 5 feet or, a little bit more. We were trying to keep it as a, way that we could still mow and have like a nice walkway down there. But there is a potential that we could move it a little bit closer to inward of the property and reduce that variance request.
And Brian, if my memory serves, and I could be wrong, have we in the past recommended to the township administration to waive a reapplication fee or something like that came about? Can we include that in our minutes, and you think they would honor that?
You can suggest it, and I'm not convinced that we have to republish.
Okay.
But if that's your preference, you can certainly ask, or put
I
it
didn't
in a.
see it costing a couple $100 to come back and ask the same question.
I appreciate the attempt of trying to, or at least considering tabling it, but I do think that Brian brings up a really good example, or a good comment. That the other standards that have to be met are still not going to be addressed, no matter what the ordinance, or no matter what the setback distance is. As far as there is no unique circumstance that is particular to this property. Every other corner property has the same issue. And this is definitely a self-created issue. And so I'm really not sure that.
Yeah, my question is
But I would like to finish I would like to finish.
Sorry. Yeah.
The problem itself is a result of where a building wants to, or where you want to place a building, but it's not as if there's a flooding issue in the only spot that is available within your property. And so that's what we mean by a self-created, in the sense that it's where you want to put the building, but there's no like septic field there that prevents that, or a pipeline, or those types of issues.
Okay. Thank you. So that was the question I was going to ask. I apologize. I was like, what's this considered a self-created issue? Because it was just difficult because of the way that, like, so we have some of those buildings and stuff like that were there when we purchased the property. But thank you for explaining that to me.
Okay, well, I think we've gotten through there. Mike, you got anything, or you good?
Yeah, I'm with Tony Rainey and Lisa Blades, Jim Chuck. I think that there's other places that he can put this pole barn at. He can take down some of the buildings that are there, and doesn't, and there is a flooding problem in that area. I don't know if there's flooding on his property, but we have to look off how much rooftop, and we need to have the water and the flooding soak into the ground. Otherwise, it's going to create a flooding runoff or something for the neighbors. I don't know. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm just thinking this is why the ordinance was made, and I'm for denying it. I'm done talking.
Okay. Well, the chair will entertain a motion.
So we have two variances, Tony, that are on the table for this. The first one revolves around the size of the parcel being 1.33 versus a 2 acre minimum. And then the second is regarding the setback.
Right, and I still need a motion, so one way or another on either one.
Well, I don't think you want me making the motion on A because I would support A and I would oppose B. Which still gets us to a no, but that's kind of where I stand on the two variance requests.
Oops. Well, let's see. I will then make a motion to, if I can find the right language here. A was, let's see. A variance from section 18.03A. That's the item for the acreage, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I would make a motion to deny the variance from section 18.03A1A of the zoning ordinance, which states that accessory structure in residential districts may only be located closer to the front property line than any portion of the principal building or structure on parcels that are a minimum size of 2 acres. Brian, is that enough in the motion?
Yeah, I think you're good.
I'll support that motion.
Okay, any further discussion?
Lisa, do you have any justification for that you'd like to share?
The justification would be that as referenced in the McKenna letter, that, okay, give me a second. That this is a self-created issue, and that the need for the variance is not due to unique circumstances peculiar to the property. Would that be enough, Brian? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be fine, Lisa. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Hey, Tony, on these, given our virtual meetings, we need to do a roll call.
Roll
vote.
call, yeah, I was just wondering about that. Okay, yeah, let's have a roll call vote then.
Okay, Mike Barber,
I'll say no.
Lisa Blades,
Yes.
I think, does Mike understand the vote there?
A yes means deny, and no means, yeah.
Yeah, I think I voted to deny it, yes.
okay. Jim Chuck,
Yes.
Tony Rainey,
Yes.
Dean Whitcomb.
No.
Okay, the motion
Kelly,
is
I don't know if-
defeated.
Kelly, I don't know that you called my name.
Oh,
Sorry, I thought I did, Lisa. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay, I need a motion on the second part of it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to deny the variance request from section 36.02, which requires a front yard setback in the R1 district of 75 feet. The request being for a 20-foot setback, justified by this not being unique and it being self-created and the other items mentioned in the McKenna letter.
I'll also support that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
No, you
Well,
gotta
let's do the roll call again.
Sure.
Kelly?
Jim Chuck,
Yes.
Lisa Blades,
Yes.
Mike Barber,
So if I say no, am I turning this down? Is that what it is? What, I missed something.
Yes equals you're denying it.
That's when I want a yes. I'm
Okay.
denying it.
Tony Rainey,
Yes.
Dean Whitcomb.
Yes.
Okay, Gregory, you are in denial for this project at this time. Hopefully things will change and you can come back and Or you can go and move it to something else. You can move it on your property and move your building a little, so.
All right, thank you
Anyway.
guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
You guys have a good one.
You too. Okay, we'll now hear for Matthew S. Young. For the, I'm assuming this is the Sidwell, resident of Northville. Assuming for the Sidwell number of 21-29-304-002. Property located on Marjorie Ann Street. Seeking a variance on side yard setbacks of 5 feet on each side. Okay, Lanny, you're up, I guess, eh?
Hi, Tony.
You on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Tony and board. It's good to, I listened to a little bit of the previous portion of the meeting. It's good to see everybody's face. I think I know everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of Matt. He has an eye problem and he has difficult seeing. So if it's okay with you folks, I'll speak on his behalf.
Yep, you're good.
I'm assuming Brian wrote a letter and I read, and I'll refer to it as the McKenna letter. And I think he covered all of the things. Later, I can maybe address a couple of his comments in there, but I think he made it pretty clear of what we're up against. And so when Matt sold his other house in Lyon Township, we found this smaller lot to build a house on. And then, of course, the setbacks, as you know, are 15 foot. And per Brian's letter, and he explained it, that, previously these were 10-foot side yard setbacks. And when Matt and I started looking at house plans, trying to plan a small ranch on this that would somewhat match the neighborhood, we went through from 500 to 1,000 plans. And we finally came up with a plan, but all of the plans that would meet the 45-foot wide building envelope are plans that really are specifically designed for lake lots and that sort of thing. It's very difficult to get that narrow of a house unless you go very deep or you go 2-story. There's only one 2-story house out of the 91 homes that are in Woodside Acres on the corner of Lillian and Sandra. So we wanted to keep consistent with the rest. And the idea here is to keep something that's compatible with the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, Lanny, the one thing real quickly I wanted to bring up was one of the neighbors was afraid you were going to build a big house. So if we could kind of get it in, do you have a square footage on the house that you're planning?
1,600 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
And we were trying to get 1,500, but it's hard to get 2 baths in a 1,500, very easily. So we wound up, so the smaller the better for us or for Matt. He's in a situation where it's better for him. Anyway, so just a ranch, 1,600 square foot with an attached garage. We looked at the possibility, and Brian made reference in his letter on one of the items, I can refer back to it, that you could put a rear entry, or I'm sorry, a detached garage in the rear yard. But the reality of it is you really can't today, because there's a lot of rear or detached garages in the neighborhood, but it was before the county required the backup septic field. Right now, when you put your 1,200, and we've got it, and I should have sent in the aerial view that they sent back from the county because we already got the septic permit. And it shows where the backup field is and where the primary field is, and your whole backyard's taken up. So we've got it back as far as we can. There's a 10-foot setback from the side yard and the rear yard for the septic field. And there's room for the backup. But if you were to put a rear or a detached garage, you couldn't put the backup, and they wouldn't have approved the septic permit. Yeah, if you can see there, that was an original survey right there, and it doesn't show the house, but you can kind of see where the backup fields are. Thanks, Brian, for putting that on there. Yeah, so that's why a rear, and I would have kind of preferred a detached garage. Matt kind of talked about that. That way we wouldn't have had to seek this variance. But anyway, the other thing is the 10-foot side yard setback and I put a little thing in there. We went through the whole neighborhood, and I didn't count them all, but out of 91 homes in the neighborhood, 67 of them are less than 15 feet, and many of them are less than 10. Some of them are right on the property line. And Tony, I don't know if, I think you were probably still on the board back in 96 or 7. We granted a number of variances in that area for garages. You probably remember. Sorry about bringing that up.
No, we have done some in
Yeah.
that. Yeah, there's been problems with that since they changed the variance or changed the ordinance, so.
And actually, Brian, in my opinion, Brian's suggestion of doing an overlay district there is a very good one. But
Yes.
the problem is that this is the last building site in the whole Woodside Acres. And I mean, there's a couple double lots where somebody someday might split off a lot and it might benefit them. But as far as benefiting anybody else in the neighborhood by doing an overlay district, it would be very, very small in benefit. And we need to get started on this. And the house that we've got designed up, we can get within the 55 feet, but anything less than that to put an attached garage, only a 21-foot wide garage is all we're putting on there. That's about as narrow as you want to go for a 2-car garage. So the land really with those 15-foot setbacks are really restrictive. The next door to the east, they're only 9 foot, I think, off the line. They're less than 10 feet. The one on the west is 18 feet. We've met all the neighbors. So there's a lot of variation in that area, but I think just having 10 foot on each side, it would fit in there nicely and we could build something that was very compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay. Anybody got any comments on this?
Well, Tony, I went out and looked at the property and, I mean, based on everything I've seen and heard, it's an older subdivision. You've heard at one point it was a 10-foot setback and the applicants counted the lots and I have no issues with granting a 5-foot variance. It fits the neighborhood. It's not out of character and I don't have any issues.
Okay,
Can I say something?
sure.
Yeah, I agree with Jim Chuck. Seems like the Youngs have done a lot of research and they've tried to make things fit, and this was not created by them. And it's the last empty lot, and he's not going to be any different than anybody else in there. With their, as time went on, the houses were built. It's a very old neighborhood. And I believe that the ordinance for 15 feet was for new subdivisions. And I think that I would like to see this one be built on, and 5 foot is not that much to ask for. I'm done.
Thank you.
Well,
Dean,
Tony,
any comments? Lisa,
it
go
may
ahead, Lisa.
Well, it perhaps might be the lone opinion on this, but I really think that this is the absolute definition of a self-created case. It's an undeveloped lot. You can be very creative with designs and you can tweak things here and there to make it comply. And I think that all of us have to comply to new ordinances. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the ordinance may or may not have been 20, 30, 50 years ago. If we have new ordinances in place, any new build is supposed to comply to those ordinances. I think too, that one of the considerations would be that if we do allow this to have the reduced setback, what are the what are the additional items that might be added to the home that would deal with fire prevention, that would have the problem that we have with the smaller setbacks being closer to the other homes using the newer building materials, would this, because we have it closer to the other homes, would they have, a sprinkling system of dealing with that, since we do have this reduction of the setbacks? So I feel like this is just setting a bad precedent. And I don't feel, as outlined by the letter that McKenna has provided, I don't really feel like this has met all of the required standards. Specifically wanted to point out the item on page 2, which says, however, we do not find that granting the variance would be consistent with justice to other property owners. Because the specific setback issue is likely to be common among nearby lots, granting variances on a case-by-case basis, et cetera, would result in relief from the standards from some property owners, but not others. And so I feel like this is another situation where we have, first of all, not meeting all of the standards. And then on top of that, really specific one is that this was self-created because the lot is undeveloped at this time.
Okay. Dean?
Thanks, Tony. I would respectfully disagree with Lisa and with some of the letter. I think being the last lot does create, I give a little more weight to it being unique because it is the last lot there. Additionally, there's been a ton of variance requests granted in there, so that there's precedent been set in this neighborhood to allow those less of an offset, less of a setback. And the fact that this is the last lot in there creates a unique enough situation where it gives us, I think, the ability to fit this in with a minimal request and not leave ourselves open to a similar situation down the road, because it is the last lot in this neighborhood. I think that has some weight as well.
Okay, thank you. And personally, I think that just the fact that he's not asking for more than what the initial setback was to begin with is a big thing too. He just wants to use the initial setback that was done when the whole subdivision was built. And there are, for some reason, there are a lot of houses in there where literally there is no setback. I mean, right across the street, there's one I went and looked to. And one house across the street has maybe 5 foot. I know Lanny said the house right next to him is only 8 or 9 feet. I think a 10-foot side setback is fine. And I think there's plenty of room on either side of that house as far as fire issue. I don't even believe that that's a problem. And it would be a worse problem in a lot of other houses in that subdivision than it would be in a new one here. I also think he's trying to stay with the thought of the neighborhood and building a house that's equal to the others in the neighborhood. So personally, I have no problem with it either. I think it's okay. I think that we have enough of a justification once again that it is last lot in the sub, and that this sub was already done in other subdivisions that you are dealing with. Some of these planned development things however that planned development set up, which there are a lot of them in Lyon Township where we only have 10 or 15 feet between some of these larger houses even that were set up as part of the PD. And those lots that they're selling in there, those houses are allowed to put up they're allowed to build on the frame that the initial PD is set up on. So that's kind of where I'm going with this as far as the initial setbacks were only 10 feet, and he's only requesting that we go to the original setback. So I'm personally in favor of it. So anyway, any other comments or anything? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I just have one question for the board really is, does the variance request change if this were a 1-story or a 2-story house? And I ask that because a variance runs with the land. If for some reason Mr. Young constructs a 1-story house and for whatever reason it comes down, the ordinance is still the same. I'm thinking 20, 30 years in the future here. Those 10-foot setbacks will still apply. Somebody could theoretically build a 2-story home. If it matters to you, I might suggest approving the variance with a condition of a 1-story house. Not intending to impose additional restrictions, but it may be something to consider.
Okay, well, the only problem I have with that is that can additionally restrict any of the other houses in that subdivision too, or can they all do whatever they have? I mean, there's a lot of those houses that have the 10-foot setbacks right now. Can they put an addition on and raise up put an additional story on top too and stay at 10 feet. And I don't know, and I'm just saying, it seems to me just why restrict this particular house when there's 60, 70 other houses that wouldn't be restricted too. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that that's a big deal. I think that that's something that we could maybe initially say that it must be at this time a 1-story house, but I don't really think that we should even restrict it that far personally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to answer that question, today, any second story that would go on top of an existing structure would have to be either 15 feet from the side lot line, or they would have to get the variance to match their existing wall.
So that would be so if they put one up, it would have to be a smaller top than the bottom, is what you're saying. They could build it, but it would just be 10 feet narrower, right? On this lot. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it could be done. I'm just against restricting this particular lot when all the rest of them can do it.
Mr. Chairman, just a procedural comment.
Yes, sir.
I think we were remiss with the first applicant. I think you need to open a public hearing and announce the time. It allows the public the chance to comment. You can close it right up again, but I think that's a required procedure that we didn't do on the first one.
Well, I actually said we were opening the public meeting, but probably what I was remiss in doing was entering in the letters from the neighborhood into the records, which I think is partly my fault there. I don't know that there's, I guess there is a way to do to open up the public comment if we have.
Yeah, and you know, the ship sailed on the first applicant. I just thought we could make sure we do it right on this one.
That's fine. I understand. I have no problem with it. So we will do that. Open it to public comment. Is anybody out there who wishes to comment? And apparently we're getting nothing from our Zoom master here, so I assume there is nothing. And now we'll close the public meeting and
thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Sure that I don't want to open.
What was that?
Well, I'll make a motion,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that
Back on my stands.
the variance for Matthew Young, Sidwell number 21-29-304-002 be approved based on the uniqueness of the lot, the multiple setbacks not currently meeting the standard in the neighborhood, and the fact that this is the last undeveloped lot in that subdivision or in that building area.
To support?
I'll support that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Need a roll call, Tony.
Oh, roll call, yes, I'm sorry. Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, Dean Whitcomb,
Yes.
Tony Rainey,
Yes.
Jim Chuck,
Yes.
Lisa Blades,
No,
Mike Barber.
Yes,
Okay, the motion is passed. Okay, do we have anything else to come before the addition, any old business at this point?
Brian, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Would we then need to address any kind of overlay district still?
Well,
There
it's
really
my-
is no, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say, it's my intention to take it to the planning commission and have them consider an overlay district. Even though the subdivision is substantially built out, you know, we talked about several instances of would the other property owners be required to have a variance in certain instances? And the answer to that is yes. I'd like to give them some relief across the board. You know, take care of any potential instances that will come before us in the future. And as long as we can ensure that the public safety officials, the fire department, don't have any issues with setbacks that are a bit closer and based on the original plat, I think it probably makes sense. So it is my intention to at least bring this up to the Planning Commission. If the ZBA wishes to make a recommendation or a suggestion that I can take with, I'm happy to entertain that, and either Jim or I can share that with the Planning Commission. But there's not a need for you to send anything back to the Planning Commission.
Okay, well, it's probably for those reasons. I think it's a good idea that we support you in that, and I think you got a good reason for doing it, so.
Well, with that, Brian, does that have to come before the board as well because that'll have some kind of expenditures that would be spent in that work, correct?
Not necessarily. We try to cover as much as we can during our general retainer office hours to prepare initial drafts of ordinances and things like that. So it's the general course of our role for the township. Sometimes that does come with additional expenditures. The township does have some allotment for zoning ordinance changes and things in the budget already. That anything above and beyond the retainer that would get pulled out of that.
Okay, any other questions?
Tony, can I just interject? Thanks to the board for your consideration. Matt appreciates that.
Okay, thanks, Lonnie. We'll see you.
Welcome.
And I've said it before, I'll say it again, because in these times it shouldn't go unnoticed, but even when we're not all aligned, the decency, professionalism, and respect of this board makes it a joy to serve on. So thank you, guys.
Thank everybody, yes.
Mr. Chairman, if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there
I'll
a second?
support that.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We are adjourned.
I guess that's a roll call. Aye. Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.